give you just a little perspective on our trip. We traveled through the beautiful desert south of Tucson toward Mexico. I enjoyed traveling through the vast spaces in the southwest of the United States, and I relished the changes of the landscape as you move through those spaces. But this time I added an element of imagining. I imagined that it would be what it would be like to walk through them. It took some creativity, since I realized I have never really experienced these spaces in the way that someone would if they walked them. And I probably never will. I knew as I looked out that I certainly would never venture there without knowing how far it was going to be, or without tons of resources on what to do and how. So what would make someone do that, venture into the unknown like that, without the certainty of what they were going to face? Perhaps a greater uncertainty about their future and the future of their children. We're given a view into the motivations of people who walk the desert in The Devil's Highway by Luis Alberto Urrea in 2004. It's a story of 26 people who crossed into the Arizona desert searching for work to help their families. 14 of them died. Urrea writes about 2 among the dead. And I quote, Raimundo Barea was a mestizo, indigenous on his mother's side. Her last name was Maruri, and in the Mexican fashion, he bore her name as well, Barreto Maruri. He was a mature man, a strong, hard worker with a cowboy's aspect. He favored Western wear. His favorite belt buckle, for example, was in the shape of a silver spur. He wore silver rather than gold, either from a preference or due to lower cost. His watch was on a faux silver band. He was a soda bottler by trade when he wasn't tending his land. He had resolved to go north to expand and re-roof his small house as a gift for his wife. A summer of orange picking was all he had in mind. He had already figured out the cost of cement block and aluminum roofing and a couple of bags of cement. Florida. It was warm like Mexico, sunny, pleasant. His pride and joy was his son, Raimundo Jr. At 15, Raimundo was a sturdy student in the regional school system, and he distinguished himself as the star of the local soccer leagues. Every teen dreams of notoriety or fame, and perhaps Raimundo could develop his soccer skills and play professionally. The thought did cross his mind when he was charging down the field, full of strength. He had the sheer faith in his father and life that could be expected from a kid whose name meant king of the world. In a surprise gesture of loyalty to his father, Raimundo Jr. asked to go along on the trip. He convinced his father by explaining to him that 2 strong backs could earn more money in a short time than one. And if they both worked like burros all summer, they'd make double the money. They might buy his mother furniture to go in the new room. For them, the planned trip was a gesture of love. I have no reason to cross the desert, but I can feel a naive sense of adventure and pride that would lead me to think it could. I've had a lot of naive moments when dreaming about the future, especially after hearing stories of others, perhaps friends, who had crossed in the past and come back richer. And then the assurances of the guides who will lead you if you pay $2,000 or so. That's the going rate, as we found out on our trip, for a coyote. They tell you that you'll be fine and that you'll make it in a couple of days, or some variation of, don't worry, just give me your money and everything will be all right. And they do succeed in getting many across in that way. But as I look out across the desert from the comfort of the rented minivan, with 6 Americans in tow, I think what it would be like to try and cross. Here again, I turn to the account of Luis Alberto Urrea. He says, most walkers die in a relatively short distance from salvation. Some walkers fall in the canals and drown. It seems to be one of the cruel tricks of the desolation spirits, but it makes brutal sense. Most walkers are fresh and strong at the start of the journey. After a day of baking in the sun, they start to get disoriented. They drink too much water. They're dizzy and weak. By the 2nd or 3rd days, when they need their wits and strength about them, they are near death. And they drop, often reported with sad irony in the press, a few miles or yards or feet from water, a home, a road, or border patrol outpost. It took us 2.5 hours to make it to Mexico in our minivan from Tucson. And after all this talk about the border, I found myself apprehensive at the threshold of another country, the way I haven't ever felt before. I'm used to just going places I want to go, worried mostly about how much money it costs to get there, to stay there. And lo and behold, we just crossed right through all the gates, customs enforcement personnel, and brightly colored cones. We were strangers in a strange land.